Hello and welcome back to 365 Days with mxmtoon. I'm Maia, a singer, songwriter, video maker, Oakland native, and supporter of Indigenous people's rights. I'm also a huge fan of history. I love untold stories, gross facts, hidden secrets, and anything weird, dark, and funky from the past. Each day, I'm going to share one of my favorite deep cuts with you, so let's take a look at today's stories.
It's 365 with mxmtoon. New facts every day, so don't leave too soon. I'm gonna teach you stuff, no it won't be tough. Gonna go a year till you've had enough. It's 365 mxmtoon.
Today, in 1959, Hawaii became the 50th state of the United States. The birthplace of President Barack Obama, Hawaii is a chain of islands in the Pacific Ocean. We might think of Hawaii as a tropical getaway, and yes, it's a beautiful state, but there's so much more to these islands than vacation paradise. The islands were first known to be inhabited by Polynesian explorers in the 5th century, and like most island nations in the Pacific, Hawaii was colonized by European explorers in the 1700s. Around this time, many nations suffered the effects of colonialism both politically and biologically. European settlers brought diseases over from their countries, often unknowingly. This is because when a group of people are living amongst each other, they build up tolerance to certain natural occurring illnesses. But when you take a bunch of European explorers and plop them into an island that's never had any contact with the region of the world, mass disease will follow. This is also what happened to civilizations like the Aztecs, who were indigenous to South America. Historians estimate that more than 80% of the native population would have been wiped out. By the mid-1800s, diseases like measles, smallpox, and influenza had killed more than half of Hawaii's population, making it even easier for outside forces to colonize their land. Hawaii became an independent kingdom in 1810, but around the 1820s, American Protestant missionaries came to Hawaii in an attempt to spread their faith. Long story short, after years of power struggles, Hawaii was annexed by the United States in 1898. That means that Hawaii was now a territory of the US, but not a part of the Union. Still, the US influence was felt. The use of the native Hawaiian language was banned in schools, and it wasn't until the 1970s that native Hawaiians were able to make an effort to reclaim their forcibly lost language. Come World War II, Hawaii still isn't a state, but due to its strategic location, the US military uses it as a base. That's why, in 1941, Japanese allies to Germany launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, a U.S. military base in Hawaii. 68 Hawaiian civilians were killed. This attack was what caused the U.S. to enter the war. On the mainland United States, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt decided that the bombings on Pearl Harbor meant that all Japanese Americans were a threat, even though they had nothing to do with the actions of the Japanese military. Between 1942 and 1946, over 110,000 Americans of Japanese descent were forcibly incarcerated in concentration camps. This included around 1,500 Hawaiians with Japanese heritage. At the camps, people could live with their families, play sports, and go to school, but these conditions were far from ideal. They were taken from their homes and shipped away, unsure of what would happen to them. They lived inside barbed wired fences, surrounded by armed guards. These might not have been death camps, which the Nazis were running in Europe, but they were indeed prisons. And the so-called crime these people were serving time for was simply for just being Japanese. In the 1980s, President Jimmy Carter opened an investigation into the mass incarceration that happened with Japanese Americans, finding that there was little proof that Japanese Americans posed an actual security threat. The investigation shows that these internment camps were a product of blatant racism. They didn't protect Americans. Instead, they treated Japanese Americans in an inhumane way and bred a culture of unjust anti-Asian prejudice. About 14 years after the end of World War II, Hawaiians had the opportunity to vote on whether or not to become an official U.S. state. The islanders voted overwhelmingly in favor of statehood, but some native activists protested against it. Still, this helped Hawaii's economy grow, but at what cost? Now Hawaii has a booming tourism economy, but there's still more to the state's culture and its history than palm trees and luau's. To this day, Hawaiians are still struggling with the impact of colonialism. Among the global scientific community, there's a big controversy over the construction of a telescope on the summit of Mauna Kea volcano. For astronomers, this is the perfect place to stargaze. The atmosphere is clear and dry on a regular basis, which gives them an incredibly accurate, unobstructed reading. Already, several telescopes dot the tall mountain, but the summit is considered sacred land for the indigenous Hawaiians, and so much of their history has been plagued by foreign interference and a lack of respect for the native people's wishes. So, when construction was slated to begin on the new telescope in 2014, 30 Hawaiian elders blocked a road leading to the mountain. They sat peacefully in protest, but they were arrested for obstructing the project. This telescope, called the 30-meter telescope, is estimated to cost over $1.4 billion. Currently, it's still under construction. Now let's talk about music. Today in 2015, Foo Fighters performed a concert in Kansas City, Missouri, but the most memorable moment of the night came before Dave Grohl and the band even took the stage. Outside of the Sprint Center, the Westboro Baptist Church started picketing. The Westboro Baptist Church is a hate group and not affiliated in any way with the actual Baptist Church. They are known for pickets like this, where they shout homophobic things into a megaphone and hold up signs with hate speech against queer people, Jewish people, Muslim people, and more. These people, for lack of a better word, sound like they absolutely suck. If people were shouting hate speech outside of one of my shows, I'd probably kick them in the shins. It's really important for people to feel welcome when they're coming to see a show, and it sucks that all these concert goers had to walk past this to get to the Foo Fighters concert. So the rock trio went up to the hateful picketers in a creative way that got their fans to laugh. They drove by the picketers in a pickup truck blasting Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up, holding large signs that said, "You got Rick rolled and keep it clean." Sometimes what these hateful protesters want is to elicit anger from people who don't share their prejudiced views. So really, the Rick roll was a perfect response. It gave people something to cheer for and laugh about, and while demonstrating that there's no room for hate at a Foo Fighters gig. And now, for today's final segment, I'll be going into my own photo archives to see what I was up to on an August 21st in my life. On August 21st, 2020, I received my my plaque, rather, for Falling For You Going Gold. This is a song that I wrote in 10 minutes, and I never expected it to get as much traction as it did. I'm really glad that I got to be a part of it, and performing it live is a lot of fun. I think people get really hyped for it. But yeah, I have my plaque. I still haven't hung it up. I don't know where to put it, but one day I will figure it out, and I'll share a photo of it online, I'm sure. Thanks for going back in time with me, and remember to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You can come back tomorrow for more stories from the past.
It's 365 with mxmtoon. New facts every day, so don't leave too soon. I'm gonna teach you stuff, no it won't be tough. Gonna go a year till you've had enough. It's 365 with mxmtoon.